Rare Disease Week, which is right around the corner. And then we'll close out our call today with Caitlin from Research America, who's going to talk about their election year initiative, Campaign for Cures. So to start off, I have to mention that, I know many of you have been on these calls over the years, and Andy Russell was previously moderating these calls. So Andy has actually departed the foundation and has moved on, but we've hired Vignesh, who's actually running the webinar today. I'm letting him sit this one out a little bit, but he'll be moderating these calls in the future. So just to give you some background about Vignesh, who actually goes by Viggy. So Viggy is a lawyer and actually passed the bar here in California. And he's worked as a lobbyist with the Civil Justice Association, again, here in California, and has been very active in and around Sacramento. And his education is from UC Santa Cruz and the McGeorge School of Law. So apparently he knows some very important Supreme Court justices as well. So it's nice that we have a new manager for policy affairs, but I also joke with him that he's now our in-house counsel. So very happy to have Vignesh on board. Okay, so moving on, I'm going to jump right into our Capitol Hill update. So I think I've done this update several times, so for those who've been on the call before, I'm sure you've been following this thing called the 21st Century Cures Act. Just so all of you remember, this was a bill that was really pushed by Chairman Upton and Congressman DeGette in the House. This was something that actually passed the House last year in very wide bipartisan margin. But unfortunately, the Senate has lagged pretty far behind the House in terms of how far the legislation has gone. And all of that actually changed this week when the Senate actually released a plan for moving forward. Next slide. So the Senate put out this press release. This is from the Senate Help Committee, which stands for Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions. So the chairman of the committee, Chairman Alexander from Tennessee, released this plan to move forward with the companion to the 21st Century Cures Act. Basically, what this plan says is that instead of putting all of the bills that comprise the 21st Century Cures Act, instead of putting them all together for consideration, he's actually going to take what folks have been calling a piecemeal approach and actually considering each bill individually before the Health Committee. So that's what the approach is going to be. Here's what has been announced so far. If you want to see the full list of bills that are planning to be considered, you can jump on the Help website and look at the press release there. But the ones that have been put out specifically for the rare disease community, we've seen the Advancing Targeted Therapies for Rare Diseases Act. We know that will be on the February 9th hearing that Help will convene, as well as the Advancing Neurological Diseases Act of 2015. And then down the road, they're planning to hold a second hearing, which will feature the Advancing Hope Act of 2015. This is about the priority review voucher program at the FDA. And then there will also be some language in there. We're not sure exactly what a bill would look like, but it would be relating to the Precision Medicine Initiative. So I have to note that these are just the first two of the hearings. There's a third hearing that is planned, although the legislative agenda for that has not yet been announced. So here's what was not in the first two briefings. There was a bill that, again, this was passed in the 21st Century Cures Act, the Patient-Focused Impact Assessment Act. This is a bill that is supposed to help ensure that the FDA is fully engaging with patients. The other bill that was missing from this was the Open Act, which is a bill that creates an incentive for companies to repurpose drugs for rare disease indications, something that we believe could actually double the number of rare disease treatments available to patients. So there is one final hearing, which will be held on April 6th. And again, the agenda for that, the legislative items, have not yet been announced. We will undoubtedly be releasing action alerts. We're still putting together a longer-term strategy, but we're hopeful that these bills will be included in the legislative package that the Senate ultimately considers and votes on So stay tuned for action alerts there. You should also plan to be on the next RDLA webinar meeting, which will be in February, on February 17th, because we'll actually have more sort of strategy for you at that point. So if you're interested in getting more engaged around this, this would be the time to sort of stay in the loop with us. I want to open up the line briefly now. If you give us just a minute here, we're going to try to unmute everyone, because I know there was a lot of information. I know a lot of folks have been following all the developments around the 21st Century Cures Act, so I want to give folks time for questions. So the lines are now open. You can also send in a question via the chat mechanism. So yeah, happy to take some questions if you have any. While we're waiting for a question, I should also add, this is just a little bit of commentary and analysis from my perspective, but what we've heard is that the bills that were announced so far to be considered by the committee in the first two hearings, those are bills that are considered relatively non-controversial compared to some of the other bills that were left out. So basically the committee appears to be going for the kind of low-hanging fruit, the stuff that has fairly broad bipartisan support first, and then try to wait, give themselves more time to negotiate around bills that there might be outstanding concerns about, and so that's what that final hearing in April should address. Okay, last call for questions. All righty, I'm not hearing or seeing any questions, so I think we're going to mute the lines again, and we can actually move on to our next speaker. If you guys do have questions that you think of later, please feel free to email me anytime, and I can try to answer them for you. So next up, we have Stephanie Fisher from the Every Life Foundation, who's going to give you all an update and some of the details about Rare Disease Week, which is right around the corner. Stephanie, are you with us?
Yes, thanks, Max. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Great. If you can advance the slide, please. I am going to try to run this through the slides pretty quickly. We had an hour-long webinar yesterday focused on Rare Disease Week, and some of you may have joined us for that. It is archived and available on the main Rare Disease Week website, and we'll get to that address in a minute. But for those of you who may not be familiar, Rare Disease Week on Capitol Hill is held every year. This year it will be Monday, February 29th through Thursday, March 3rd. Anyone in the rare disease community is invited to join us, patients, caregivers, and other advocates. I saw some interest among medical students, which is great. We want physicians more aware of rare diseases to improve the time for diagnosis. All of the events are in Washington, D.C., and all of our events are free for the community to attend. Next slide, please. All the events are free and open to the community, but registration is required. There is a separate registration for NIH, Rare Disease Day at NIH on Monday. We'll get to that in a moment. But for all the other events that are hosted by Rare Disease Legislative Advocates, you can find a link to register on the main webpage at rareadvocate.org/RDW. It is a two-step process. So after you put in all of your information and select which of the events you'd like to attend, you'll get a screen showing your name, your email address. You must click complete registration or you're not registered. After you take that second step of completing your registration, you should receive an email confirming your registration. If you didn't receive the email, you are not registered. So we won't know to expect you. We won't have meetings scheduled for you if you are planning to attend the lobby day. So please, if you think you registered but didn't get an email, please go ahead and register again and be sure to do that second step of hitting complete registration. Next slide, please. So the first event is Rare Disease Day at NIH. So there's a separate registration, since it's run by the NIH, you can find a link at the bottom of the page. It has an impressive lineup of speakers this year. Francis Collins, the director of the NIH, will be speaking, as will Chris Austin, the director of the National Center for Advancing Translational Sciences, and the director of the NIH Clinical Center. They will also have a speaker from FDA, the director of the Office of Orphan Products Development, and they provide some of the leading groups in the rare disease space with an opportunity to provide updates, including NORD, Global Genes, the Every Life Foundation, Genetic Alliance, and Uplifting Athletes. Next slide, please. There is a shuttle. We are providing a shuttle from Rare Disease Day at NIH to the cocktail reception and documentary screening. That is a choice when you are going through your registration for Rare Disease Week on Capitol Hill. So if you could please make sure you indicate if you need a shuttle to help us plan accordingly. There will be shuttles that can accommodate wheelchairs to make sure that we can get all of our advocates from the NIH to the cocktail reception and screening. And so listen for an announcement during the NIH program to let you know where to go, and just follow the traffic. Next slide, please. So the first event that we are hosting is a rare disease documentary screening and cocktail reception at the U.S. Naval Heritage Center. The movie that we'll be showing is an inspirational documentary about a young man with Duchenne muscular dystrophy. It's called Dusty's Trail, Summit of Borneo. After the film is shown, we'll have a panel discussion with someone who was instrumental in making the film, some of the rare disease, at least one of the rare disease groups that is active in Duchenne, and a representative of a biopharmaceutical company or two, just to have a very robust discussion. Next slide, please. On Tuesday, we'll have an all-day legislative conference which aims to train advocates and help them prepare for the lobby day the next day. We'll talk about what to expect from Congress in an election year, how and why to talk to regulators at FDA and NIH, some of the key policy initiatives, how to prepare for Hill meetings, including how to tell your personal story in 2 minutes or less. You'll likely only have about 20 to 30 minutes with members of Congress and staff, and there'll be a few people in your group. So we don't want one person taking up 20 minutes. You have to be able to effectively communicate your personal story, how rare disease has impacted you, and then leave time to make your ask of the members of Congress, whatever your legislative priorities are. And then we'll have 2 sets of breakout sessions, so you can pick the topics that are of greatest interest to you, whether it's working with industry, using social media for advocacy, working with FDA, or in the second set, you'll be able to pick which state issue is most important to you, such as newborn screening. Next slide, please. I do want to mention that the legislative conference attendance of the legislative conference is required to attend the lobby day. We're not able to make any exceptions. So if you plan to join us for the lobby day on Wednesday, you must join us for the legislative conference. We want to make sure all of our advocates are prepared to go up on the Hill. Next slide, please. So for the lobby day, it's going to start with a breakfast, and we are extremely excited that Dr. Robert Califf, who's currently Deputy Commissioner for Medical Products and Tobacco at the FDA, and a nominee for the FDA Commissioner, is going to join us for opening remarks, which is huge. And then we're also in the process of confirming members of Congress. I think you'll recognize your names when their names when you see them. And then we will be scheduling meetings for you sometime in between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. depending on the availability of your member of the House and your senators. Next slide, please. And just want to reiterate, you must attend the legislative conference in order to have meetings scheduled for you for the lobby day. Advocates will be grouped in states and possibly regions, depending on how many folks are in your state delegation. And you'll sit with your state or regional teams during the legislative conference so you can get to know each other better and feel more comfortable going to the Hill together. You'll receive your lobby day schedules at the legislative conference. We're going to start scheduling. We're going to work with advocacy associates to begin scheduling your meetings in early February, but they won't be finalized until really the week of Rare Disease Week on Capitol Hill. If you register for lobby day and later determine that you're not going to make it, please let us know right away so we can let the congressional offices know. It's going to be harder to schedule meetings next year if we have no shows this year. So we want to be very respectful of the time of members and congressional staff. Next slide, please. We are very excited about the Congressional Caucus briefing this year. This is going to be the first briefing of the bicameral Rare Disease Congressional Caucus. Hopefully you saw the news last month that we have Senators Orrin Hatch, and Amy Klobuchar in the Senate. So we've been able to expand the Rare Disease Caucus in the House to the Senate. We're still working on a topic, but we expect to have senators and members in attendance as well as staff, so it's a great chance for you to continue building relationships with members and staff, and lunch will be provided. Next slide, please. Another opportunity for networking with members of Congress and staff will be the Rare Artist Reception on Thursday. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Rare Artist Contest. It's run by the Every Life Foundation, and the judges are just finalizing their choices this week. So we hope to have an announcement tomorrow or early next week with those choices, but you'll be able to see their art, hopefully meet some of the artists, and then network with members of staff and their members of Congress and their staff. Next slide, please. The Every Life Foundation offers travel stipends in order to allow more advocates from attend. Our goal is to really have advocates from all 50 states join us so that the Senate hears from constituents and the House hear from constituents affected by rare disease. So the folks who have applied for a stipend have been notified if they met the deadline by December 31st. We weren't unfortunately not able to grant all of the requests for stipends. We had 200, and so we have funding for about 90. So as advocates who were offered a stipend decline, we're able to go to advocates on the wait list. So if you're on the wait list, don't lose hope. I'm still optimistic that we'll be able to offer them to quite a few folks on the wait list. We just can't do it until we hear from folks who are offered stipends initially. We are still considering applications for stipends from some states that aren't represented or underrepresented. So if you live in any of these states, you can go ahead and apply for a stipend. The link is on the main Rare Disease Week webpage. In order to receive a stipend, advocates must attend the legislative conference and the lobby day, and the checks will be given out at the legislative conference. Advocates need a photo ID and their social security number, and we'll sign for the check. Next slide, please. We have a block of rooms at the Fairfax at Embassy Row from Sunday through Friday morning. We have availability Sunday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. We're in the process of trying to add rooms on Monday. And the link and the phone number are available on the main Rare Disease webpage. I did want to note, because we've had quite a few questions, the only transportation we're offering is from the NIH to the documentary screening on Monday evening. We do not provide transportation from the hotel to any of the other events. That would be up to the individual advocates. Next slide, please. For anyone not able to attend, we would love to be able to share your unique story with your member of Congress and both senators. As I mentioned, in order to have an impact, it would be great for all members of the House and every senator to hear from multiple constituents who are impacted by rare disease. And so if you're not able to attend, please submit your story. We will have it hand-delivered for you. If you are able to attend, please share this with your networks on Facebook, on Twitter, or include it in your newsletter so that we can compile a really robust book of stories to share with each member. We want them to hear from us so that we can make more of an impact. Next slide, please. As I mentioned, we had a webinar yesterday that went over maybe 30, 35 minutes of content. We did 15, 20 minutes of questions to make sure that as people were booking travel or considering whether to come, we were able to answer their questions. That first webinar has been posted on the main Rare Disease Week webpage. The link was included earlier. And we have a second webinar on February 23rd at 2 o'clock Eastern Time that will get even more into more specifics with the different events as far as what to bring and how you can prepare. We're hoping to have one of the issues that we will address in the legislative conference is how to tell your story, how to be effective in communicating it in a short period of time. So we're hoping to go over that on the webinar as well, so you can start to think about that even before you get to DC. So the link to sign up is on this webpage. Next slide. And I know we ran through that really quickly. I just didn't want to bore the people who were able to spend time with us yesterday. If anyone has any questions, please go ahead and use the chat or Q&A feature.
Thank you, Stephanie. This is Max. So we actually have had a couple questions come in via the chat feature. I'm going to field the first one. There was sort of general question about whether advocates will have the opportunity to connect with sort of related disease groups that they're in. And so the answer to that is absolutely yes. There's a huge amount of networking time that will be sort of built into Rare Disease Week, and if there are specific diseases or disease organizations that folks want to get connected to, I think you could probably interface with Stephanie, since she is our lead on patient engagement and really knows whom from all of the patient groups will be there. So, certainly myself or Stephanie can help you connect with the right people. And then this is another question that Stephanie, would be great if you could answer. So the question was, for those who applied for stipends, when will those, and they're still waiting, when will those final applications be awarded, and are they dependent on the wait list?
So yes, the answer is that they're dependent on the wait list. We ask that anyone who was offered a stipend has to register by January 31st, and so that way we'll know how many are available. So I expect that we will be able to tell waitlisted advocates within the first week of February if we're able to offer one. The only thing I would add is we may have folks that are registered cancel. We've heard from a mother whose daughter's in the ICU, she's not able to attend. We may have people who have to cancel closer to the event, and then we will be able to offer those stipends. I realize it's harder for people to make arrangements for both time off of work or travel plans, but we may be able to offer a handful of stipends after that first week of February. I just have no way of knowing. I won't have any way of knowing in advance how many that will be.
Awesome, thank you. So the phone lines are now unmuted and open. So I know we've gotten some questions via the chat feature, but if folks have questions they want to ask, feel free to shout it out. Okay, so I'm not hearing any questions. If folks do have other things that come up, feel free to email myself, or certainly Stephanie should be able to answer any questions about Rare Disease Week as well. So at this point, I think we can move on to our final speaker. We're joined by Caitlin Leach from Research America, and she's going to be talking about their campaign for cures. Give us just 1 second here. We can get the PowerPoint up for you. And Caitlin, are you with us?
Yes, thank you. So thank you, Max, and the Every Life Foundation for inviting me to join you all today. Just briefly, for those of you who are not familiar with Research America, we're an advocacy alliance of patient advocacy organizations, academic institutions, independent research institutions, scientific societies, and industry, all advocating for faster medical progress. And so we do that all year round, but one of the ways we're doing that now is through our voter education initiative. So next slide, please. So this year we're calling it Campaign for Cures, but this is not the first year we've done this. Every campaign cycle since 2006, Research America has run a voter education program with really 3 main goals you see here on the screen. We're elevating medical progress, medical research. We want to make sure that's part of the national conversation when people who hope to be the president or members of Congress are talking about the issues they care about. We want to make sure that research, treatments, cures, regulatory issues are all part of that conversation. We're also hoping that voters engage in dialogue with their candidates and talk to them about the issues that they feel passionately about, and if you don't tell them, they won't know. And finally, we're hoping to increase public awareness of sort of how research contributes to health, and that's both in the private sector and in the public sector, so research funded by the government but also conducted by industry. And so part of this is public awareness. And so a few things that you need to know about our voter education initiative. It's a nonpartisan activity. We're not endorsing candidates. We're not telling people who to vote for, but the idea is to have more information and have this in the national dialogue so that voters on Election Day can make their own decisions. And we are a 501c3, as many of our partners are, and so we are operating in that space, obviously, without picking or choosing candidates. And we don't do this work alone. We have wonderful partners that work together with us to achieve these 3 goals, and I'd like to say a special thank you to Every Life Foundation, who is just recently joined as one of our newest partners on Campaign for Cures. And so because of that, you'll notice that our partners range across many disease areas or research topics, and so our messages are broad and customizable, so it's not just advocating for one particular disease area, but you can join us and join the conversation, customizing the messages to your specific cause. Next slide. And so the way we define success and the way that I like to think about Campaign for Cures is when we look ahead to next January, exactly 1 year from today, we'll have a new 115th Congress. We'll have just gotten to work in their first session in early January, and we'll probably see new faces in the House and Senate, and we will have had the 45th president sworn in just, it's the 20th of January next year. So our goal is that when all of these new individuals are here in Washington and the folks who are coming back, having previously served in Congress, we want those individuals to know not just the role that research plays in finding treatments, in finding cures, but also we want them to know how important it is to all of their constituents, to the American public, that people care about this issue. And it's a way of building champions. So next year, when you go for Rare Disease Week, you know, hopefully these are people who've heard about you, not just because you were here, you know, this year, but also because you talked to them while they were campaigning. So that's sort of the way we think about defining success for Campaign for Cures. Next slide. So how do we get there? As Max was talking about earlier in the presentation, there's a lot of momentum with 21st Century Cures in this over the last year, and with the Senate moving on innovations, with FY16 having strong appropriations for the agencies that are funding research, to the moonshot that the President mentioned in the State of the Union. People are talking about research, people are talking about cures, and we want to build on that momentum. We have it on our side, and we want to use that momentum to keep research in the conversation. And as I mentioned, it's one of our goals, we want to start a dialogue. We want constituents and candidates alike to talk about this issue. And just the way you do on Capitol Hill, we hope that people are sharing their personal stories on the campaign trail, along with the other arguments, you know, economic or security, et cetera. Because if you don't tell your candidates when they become president or members of Congress or the Senate, they're not going to know just how passionately you care. And so we'll be doing that through media, social media. We have a hashtag. I'll share all of that with you shortly. But also traditional media, op-eds, letters to the editor, et cetera. And one of the main tools we're using is absolutely the power of grassroots. And it's really a role that rare disease groups have played very strongly in the past voter education initiatives. Next slide, please. So I'd like to take a moment to say thank you to all of you for participating in the past, if you have, and if you haven't, thank you for considering to join us. I know that rare disease advocates have a passion that is truly palpable, and this is an example here you'll see on the screen of in the 2014 Congressional interim campaign cycle. We did a selfies for medical progress, and we had a lot of rare disease groups and advocates participate with us, and so here's one example from EB. But we'll hope you join us again, not just to participate in the activities that we'll be sharing through social media and through our website, but also if you have ideas that you'd love to share with us, please do. This is a collaborative process. So next slide. Some ways that you can get involved, as I said, through social media. You can, I invite you to like our Facebook and Twitter pages. They're new, so they're definitely every like counts, and this is part of our sharing and getting it out. And if you're, that's one way to stay up to date on information as we're launching different activities and facets of the campaign throughout until Election Day. That's where you'll find information very up to date. And we hope that if you are active on social media, that you would join the conversation using the hashtag #CampaignForCures. And as I said, many groups will often use their own hashtag specific to their disease or their cause, in addition to the Campaign for Cures hashtags. You can use them both, and that's Campaign for Cures with the numeral 4. But also, please check out our website, which is campaignforcures, spelled out F-O-R, cures.org. We have a toolkit that I invite you to use. It has templates for things like letters to the editor, op-eds. It has images and graphics that you can download to share on social media. And if there are things that you don't see that you would like, we can certainly work with you to customize those items. And we can create personal images or specific templates to you if that's helpful. And if campaigns are coming through your town or your state, please consider going to their events and asking a question just the way you would go to their congressional office and tell your story. Why don't you, we'd love for you to consider going to a town hall and asking a question. What if you were the president, or if you were my representative in Congress, what would you do to accelerate medical progress? And see what they say. And also please spread the word to your networks, in your newsletters, to your personal connections. We would really value that. And if you have questions or if you have ideas that you think we should consider, please email me at any time. It's cleach, L-E-A-C-H, @researchamerica.org. So thank you so much. If you have any questions, I'm happy to take them.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Caitlin. We're in the process of opening the lines again. If folks have questions, and again, you guys can use that chat feature too if you have any questions for Caitlin about the Campaign for Cures.
Caitlin, this is Janice. I represent Cure Caucus Association, and I just wanted to know if I heard you correctly. We can reach out to you, and you would be able to customize, you said, some templates for us that we could use to help spread the word about accelerating, going to officials and thinking about working towards finding cures in America. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. Especially for the rare disease community, you'll find some of the examples we have sort of preloaded in our website might be for larger disease groups because those are just catch-all categories. So we are absolutely happy to update with individual messaging. If you have, we can merge, the Campaign for Cures concept with your particular disease area. We are happy to do that, and we've done so in the past to create graphics for social media or talking points, scripts, whatever would be helpful to you. Just let us know.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
Great. Any other questions for Caitlin?
Yeah. Hi, this is David Eckstein from the Office of Rare Diseases Research at NIH. It's not really a question. It's just sort of a comment and an invitation. So I'm the one who leads the organizing of Rare Disease Day at NIH, which, by the way, is a free event for everybody. We do have posters and table exhibits available there, so I would encourage Research America to have a presence there, and we can help with your outreach to the community.
Thank you. I very much appreciate that. I'll be in touch.
Okay.
Excellent. Any other questions, comments for Caitlin? Okay, hearing none, can actually start to wrap it up today. Yeah, I think going forward, so Vicky will be leading these calls in the future, so his contact information is listed there. I just want to put out a reminder that the agenda for these calls is and always has been open, so if you guys have specific pieces of legislation you'd like to speak on, or policy updates, policy concerns, anything like that, feel free to email myself or Vignesh, and we can help get that issue on the agenda. So if there are no final questions, we can actually wrap up today's call. So the lines are open. If there's any final questions, we'll wait just another minute here. So there's one question about the name of the person who is organizing the NIH Rare Disease Day, and his name is David Eckstein. David, I don't have your email in front of me, but if you don't mind maybe reading that off in case folks have questions.
Sure. It's David, D-A-V-I-D, .Eckstein, E-C-K-S-T-E-I-N, @nih.gov.
Great, thanks, David. I will say I was at the event last year, a terrific event, awesome networking. It's great to be able to see some of the research labs in the clinical center, and it's a great opportunity to connect with NIH researchers who are doing rare disease research, so it's really fascinating. And I believe last year the FDA was also there as well, folks from their orphan disease office. So yeah, really great event to attend and free. So obviously you guys should attend if you can make it. Any other final questions? Okay, hearing none, so just a final reminder that our next call will be on February 17th at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. And again, if you guys have suggestions for what you'd like to see on the agenda or interested in speaking even, just drop us a line and let us know. So with that, I'm going to close out the call today. Thank you all so much for being on the call, and look forward to seeing everyone during Rare Disease Week. Have a good day.
Thank you.